Right, good day everybody, welcome. This is the Japan World FinTech Festival, part of the Singapore FinTech Festival SFF Plus program, coming to you live with three gentlemen. And today we are going to be covering a very important topic. And we're going to cover it from different perspectives. Basically, the theme for this is really about cryptocurrencies in Japan. But we're not just going to be talking about speculative prices, meme coins, dog coins, whatever it is. That's not the purpose of today's conversation. The purpose of today's conversation is really about how the industry looks like, not only from a regulation perspective, but we're also going to be covering it from a innovation perspective. What exactly is happening in Japan? And just before we start, I'm going to give a very quick introduction about the three gentlemen and myself as well. For those of you who have not met me before, my name is Gabriel. I am part of the MAS, which is basically your regulator as well as your central bank based in Singapore. I'm part of what we call the FinTech Innovation Department. We are the ones that essentially look at what's happening in the FinTech space and how it's progressing. One of the key things and platforms which we run is actually the Singapore FinTech Festival that's been going on for a while. And the organizers, Kiko-san and the rest of the team, really appreciate you for basically inviting me to moderate this panel with these esteemed guests. I'm just going to go down very quickly and make a short introduction, and everybody can fill in from there. I'm going to start with Ken Kawai. Ken Kawai basically, we both actually met way back in 2018. I believe you were very active, with the FSA, advising them about cryptocurrencies and everything like that. I believe you're still doing the same as well. You've got a lot to say about the derivatives market as well. I remember back in 2018, looking at your speech and your sharing you did at the foreign correspondents panel as well, where you had so much to say. We're talking about things that don't really, nobody talks about it anymore. You were even talking about ICOs and everything. It sounded literally like a decade ago. So it's so nice to have you with us. I've got Nakagawa with me as well. He's from Monex, CoinCheck. He's also somebody who I believe is extremely active, extremely, like in my conversations, all my trips to Japan, and even though I've organized a couple of conferences there, I think Yo is probably one of the most pragmatic people I've ever met. When it comes to the space, very level-headed, very straight-headed, everything like that. You're not going to hear the word moon from him, for example, right? But still very nice. And we have here as well with me now Kitazawa. I think he represents a brand. It's an iconic brand in the crypto space, one that doesn't need any introduction. That's has really just started business, and I think is a big seal of approval for the Japanese market. He represents Coinbase in Japan, essentially. But going back very quickly, to Ken Kawai, it's like, give us a little bit of an update. Since we last met in 2018, what have you been up to? What's interesting this year? And if you don't mind, maybe give us a little bit of a very quick 2-minute introduction about what's happening in the regulatory space in Japan, and then after that we can go on and we'll do a short introduction of Yo Nakagawa again.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, God. So, so since we met in 2018, there are lots of changes in Japan. So, of course, the most important thing, one of the most important thing was an implementation of new regulations in 2020. So, the crypto is more strictly regulated, and the regulation on the derivatives kicked off. And also the security token offering is permitted from the 2020. And apart from that, we see lots of progress in the market. So of course, this year we've seen a lot of needs from overseas entities to enter into Japan. So the Japanese market looks interesting to overseas big crypto entities such as Coinbase, and I see lots of others would like to newly enter into the custodial market or the exchange market this year. And also the NFTs are also booming in Japan, especially for fandom, anime or other gaming or the digital art sectors. We've seen lots of interesting issuing or those kind of things. So and it's very NFT is very in a sense familiar with Japan people because it's a kind of the country for anime, game, manga, or those kind of
Absolutely.
yeah. So
Absolutely agree with you.
yeah. So you are a fan of that, I think. So yeah, so it's going to be a very interesting market. Of course, the price of NFTs is not much as high as those in the US or other areas, but not only the startups, but also the big content holders are also interested in this area as well. And one of the things is that back to the traditional institutions, the BOJ started implementation, the POC or the experience of the CBDC. So we are very keen what's going on there. So this is also the interesting thing. And
Nice. Is I think
yeah,
you mentioned a lot of very interesting points. Talked about fandom, we talked about NFTs, we talked about how the BOJ is in getting involved now and everything like that. Now, just want to put a very quick pause because we're talking about stable coins. Yo-san, if you don't mind, just want to move very quickly to you, just get your comments, and maybe we can wrap a little bit about what Monex and maybe more explicitly what CoinCheck has been up to. But to wrap that question around it, I also want to get an understanding from you. So, and it's a conversation that both of us have had, in previous years as well, which is that when we first met, we were going into a bear market, right? We were going into a market where cryptocurrency prices were going down and everything like that. And I think one of the things we both collectively also talked about was that it is now that we're kind of out of it, right? It's a blessing in disguise. And why? Because it forces people to stop speculating and basically start building, right? Because they've got nothing to do, right? We can't stare at our phones hoping that the price increases by 10% every day, right? That didn't exist, right? In fact, every time we look at the phone, it's going down by 10%, right? And I think after that whole depression, if I can call it, obviously that cycle, a lot of people, I think, like what Ken shared with NFTs, I don't think we would get where we are today from an innovation perspective without this bear market, because it forced the people to go back. In fact, if you look at DeFi, it's a very convenient example. The DeFi summer actually, the genesis of DeFi summer last year actually really happened because people were focused on building. And I just wanted to hear your comments about all of this.
So I think the past few years, in particular the crypto winter period, was a period for us that, obviously wasn't a pleasant period, but it also gave us time to focus on fixing our business. If you remember, CoinCheck was hacked in January of 2018, and that kind of like triggered a much more, or that actually sped up the discussion on how to properly regulate cryptos in Japan and to protect retail investors, because crypto in Japan remains primarily a retail market. So we spent pretty much 2018 fixing our business, and we got our crypto license in January of 2019. And that kind of like coincided with the market somewhat recovering, and but obviously not so much. But as we've seen, it wasn't the market like in the first half of this year. So we were able to kind of like reposition ourselves to be viewed as a more compliant and more reliable business. To date, I think the regulation has been made very clear, and everyone we do spend a lot of time making sure that we're a compliant exchange, but also we work very closely with regulators to launch new products that fit that is innovative, and that fits our customer demand. So CoinCheck is the first exchange to launch an NFT exchange within a regulated entity. So we're one of the first. We challenged the regulators in issuing an IEO. We did that in July. So I think that regulation is an expensive thing to comply with, but it also, if you're properly regulated, it gives us the channel to have a very forward-looking, productive discussion with the regulators as well. So, I think we've proved that that being regulated doesn't mean that it completely stifles innovation, right? I think it's the way you work with the regulators. You prove that you can handle and you can protect your investors. Then the regulators are willing to, at least from our experience, is willing to work with the market to provide more interesting products for our retail customers.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. And I think there always has to be a balance with regards to regulation and innovation, right? And without that, like one can't work without the other. Regulations exist for a reason. I also think that without innovation, as an industry, and I'm talking about the general tech industry, right? If you don't mind me, it's something that just won't grow. We won't evolve. And I do not want to go too far out and quote, Balaji Srinivasan or something like that, but he talks about, as a human race, we need to evolve and everything like that. And sometimes it's these little things, right? Yeah. And actually on this note as well, now I see you smiling and laughing and everything. If you don't mind, just unmute yourself and also tell me, it's like, if we going to talk about innovation, right? And maybe also share a little bit about, as a start, share a little bit about your own journey into Coinbase, and what are some of the significant milestones you've probably seen happening in the space? Because compared to Ken, comes from the perspective of, obviously he looks at it from with the FSA last time as an advisor. Yo looks at it from Monex, a little bit corporate and everything like that. You're the gentleman in the t-shirt right now, so please tell us, what have you seen? What have you seen essentially in from a milestone perspective, or maybe significant milestones you've seen in Japan?
Thanks, Galvin. Again, happy to be part of this panel. This is great. And yeah, well, first of all, I think I want to echo what you folks are talking about, like, crypto evolving in this couple of years. What I've been seeing is well, I actually come from like boring legal finance background, so I'm not much of the developer and techie person. But I mean, as we all know, crypto has always been led by the communities, the developers. But I guess over these past years, a couple of years, there's been more sort of awareness and interest from the rest of the world. So, people start looking at it as more of a meaningful investment. And then, you've got the entire regulators are really being interested in crypto. And, we do see some huge interest from institutional investors, for instance, not in Japan at this point, but elsewhere. So I think these,
is it like institutions looking into Japan, into the Japan market, or just talking generally? Just
I was looking to more of the global, institutional investors' awareness towards crypto. Especially in Coinbase globally, there are more institutional customers than ever in this couple of years. So this general awareness is really excites us, because then we could definitely talk about crypto being more like what does it mean to be a crypto? What's so innovative about crypto, and what can crypto change the world, and all that kind of stuff. And what I just wanted to say is that, like, without any rule, people just cannot play with things, and people cannot trust on these platforms, right? So I think there's always going to be demand for rule setting, and we do have some finance knowledge elsewhere, and we're trying to sort of figure out whether this like classic or basic legal framework would adapt to crypto or not, and it's really experimental phase, I guess. But Japan had taken really sort of step forward. So they were the first country to legalize crypto, foster crypto. Unfortunately, a few hacking incidents, but they didn't lose the battle. They came back with some more robust regulations and whatnot. And Yosan has mentioned earlier, but the regulator has always been open for discussion. So what we've done, Coinbase, in this couple of years was to really sort of discuss with the regulator as to how a global company like us could come into the Japan market with the full compliant operational perspective. And it was a really healthy discussion. We've had so many conversations with them, and they're really open to learning what crypto is and whatnot. So so this couple of years has been really amazing, and we're really happy that we've had spent this year to discuss with the JFSA or regulator to really start the business in a more sort of robust way. And yeah, go ahead, Gabe.
Yeah, interesting. So Ken-san, if I don't mind, if I'm just going to go back to you very, very quickly on this. I think Nao-san mentioned a lot about having conversations with the JFSA, and obviously, and look, by no respect, I know for a fact these conversations are not easy. Some of these conversations turn out, half of these conversations are more educational rather than anything else, right? And it's really getting them to understand. But at least I can say that there is an effort to be put to understand. Right, but Ken-san, just wanted to ask with you, like, and I think everybody agrees that regulations has its benefits, right? Having a little bit of a rope, quote unquote, Nao-san as well. But given where we are right now, what else still needs to be done? Or is, in fact, I would even ask the question, are we going too fast? The reason why I ask is because Japan's probably one of the first countries in the world back in 2018 that made Bitcoin legal tender, right? And it's obviously very much motivated by creating kind of like a financial hub, right, for digital currencies, not just crypto, digital currencies in Japan. And I think after everything that's happened, whether is it hacks, whether is it regulation, stop starts, and everything like that, there's also been a lot of talk that maybe a bit too fast, too soon. But I just wanted to get your thoughts as well. What about the clarity? Regulations always moves slower than innovation, always moves slower than market demands. That is a fact. That is a fact, right? And if you look outside crypto, specs is a very good example of that. Now, what more do you think needs to be done? And what else can basically whether it's the JFSA, the BOJ, anybody like that improve on as we go ahead, given where we are now today?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the new things are always happening in this space. DeFi is one of the things. Yeah, one of the example of these things, and of course, everyone is talking about how to regulate DeFi or whether we should regulate DeFi or not. And also the same can be said with NFTs. So it was a bit surprising for us Japanese lawyer to see in 2017 and 18 that Japan was the first country to regulate cryptos. So the Japan is not so moved. So from our experiences, Japan is a little bit a conservative country, so not moving so fast. But in this space, Japan would, in 2017 and 18, would like to take a lead in this industry. So, and in 2020, they tightened the regulations. So this is very difficult things to regulate the things in the good timing. So if you regulate the things very early stage, it would kill the new industry. But if it was too late, then there occurs significant bad impact on consumer protection. So the timing is very important. So one of the important things is to communication between the regulator and industry, and industry needs to input what's going on in the market. So of course, the regulator itself is studying, and I think the FSA has been doing very good. They would like to learn more about cryptos, DeFi, NFTs. So because from this summer, FSA started a study group to consider how to address DeFi and digital currencies. So and inviting some of the US experts to find out what's going on there. So and with this kind of sound communication, and so to find whether there are any negative impact occurs in the market or not, or what is really, so let's say in the DeFi, who is the entity to run the business? Are there any party who run the business or not? So this kind of communication would be important to decide the timing or how to regulate these new business.
Right. Interesting. So thank you for this. I think you touched on a very few key points. I think one of the biggest discussions that's been taking place about DeFi is how do you regulate DeFi, because it's peer-to-peer, right? And essentially there's no KYC, it's anonymous. There's a lot of beauty in the way DeFi actually works and everything. But I think the bigger concern here, and we talked a lot and we underlined a lot about consumer protection as well. That's always going to be a challenge. But and Yo-san, I'm going to put you in a bit of a spot right now. You've obviously had a lot of your own discussions, whether is it working groups, similar groups with Ken-san as well. How, in your view, is progress taking place? And as a further add-on, just to give everybody a good understanding, and now, San, please feel free to jump in as well. With Yo-san, is that how big's the market right now? Does anybody even know? Do we even have the data to show how big is the market? We obviously know it's booming. We obviously know interest is high. But is there any data, or is there any way or anything when it comes to not just crypto adoption, but wallets, trading, everything like that? How big is the market? Or even like on the institutional side of things, who are the institutions that have shown interest in it?
So I think Japan, as Ken mentioned, right? Japan's regulators were somewhat forced to regulate cryptos, and it was because there were a lot of retail investors already deep into investing in cryptos. So the regulators had to rush in to protect these retail customers, and therefore the regulation has been designed to basically, it's a retail-focused regulation, right? Now that's kind of good, but also maybe not so good. But in any case, we have a regulation in place. I think the regulators, to be very fair with the Japanese regulators, I think they've done a pretty good job in terms of maintaining a dialogue with the industry. They've and this is modeling what they've done, aside from just setting rules and regulations, is that they've set up this a self-regulatory body called the JVCEA, right? This is a self-regulating body which stands in between the industry and the regulator. And so this is kind of like the body that communicates with the regulators, but also communicates with the industry. This has served as a pretty good way to communicate directly or indirectly with the regulators. And in that capacity, right? So it has to wear a regulator's cap, but it also works with the industry to regulate or educate them to understand the importance of regulation. And to your point about the market size, right? So this JVCA, amongst all the things that they do, they actually collect market data or trading volume by member exchanges. And this is public data. So if you go to their website, jvca.or.jp, or maybe .org, I'm not quite sure if the URL, but if you go to their website, they have a public database, which it's at this point, it's only trade data, but it gives kind of like a snapshot of where Japan's crypto market size is. Unfortunately, it does not break down as in, for example, like the brokers' securities market. It doesn't give you a breakdown on type of investors, whether it's retail or institutional. So we don't know, but it gives you a picture of how the size of the market. In terms of the institutional business in Japan, I think it's very limited at this point. We are getting interest from institutions. They're not financial institutions, but more corporates, right? To either invest or use crypto for wiring of funds, or to use crypto for payments for maybe real estate transactions, right? So it's growing, but it's very early stage.
Got it. Interesting. Nao-san, do you have anything to add with regards to like market size, anything you see and everything before we move on to the next discussion topic?
Sure, Gab. So I agree with Yosan that Japan currently is a retail focused market. And I think for us to really bring crypto to the next stage in Japan is to really set a foundation for Japanese institutional investors to come into the market. And I think all of us know that Japanese institutional investors are quite conservative, and maybe not so many institutional investors at this point think that crypto is an investable asset class or not, because of the security notion, hacking, or the volatility and what have you. But as everyone has discussed, now that we've got the laws and regulations, now it's up to more of the implementation, and it's up to the industry to really make sure that there wouldn't be any sort of incidents that we evidenced previously to really sort of decrease the confidence of the industry from the institutional investors. And if we get that, the market's going to be huge. So
I have a very curious question. I have a very curious question to follow up with that as well. And this interest in everything like that, is it geocentric, meaning that are we seeing this? Is it wrong for us to look at Japan as an entire country, and that maybe different cities or prefectures are reacting differently? The speed's different, for example. So it's just a convenient example, like Tokyo versus Osaka versus Fukuoka, for example. Are we seeing any changes? Are we seeing any unique developments or innovations that are coming out? The reason why I ask is because obviously these three are probably the most popular cities, most populated cities, and obviously considered tier 1 cities. And Fukuoka always tries to rival Tokyo as being like the tech hub, right, in Japan. So has there been any changes? And you've seen Yo-san. I think you might have something. I think you might have something to say. Or we can go with Nao-san first.
Yeah, I'll go first. By the way, when you mentioned Balaji, I was laughing because he was our CTO, and
yes, exactly.
Sort of, always aspired by his sort of vision.
Balaji is one of the top 5 smartest people I've ever met. Like he's probably one of the people where whatever he tweets or reads, I probably need to read like 5 times to really get it and everything like that. Yeah. We're actually going to have him at the Singapore FinTech Festival as well. And
That's
good luck to
great.
whoever's moderator. I moderated him last year. I was like, that was too stressful, and passing it on to someone else this year.
Yeah, he's thinking about like 10
Yes.
different things at one time. So yeah.
Yeah, man.
It's hard to
Yeah,
moderate,
correct,
right?
correct. Yeah, but please share with us. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say that. So I think crypto as by its nature, anyone could really invent crypto, right? So we do see a lot of sort of communities or developers or great ideas coming out from all different parts of the country, so which is really great. And so that's not only in Japan, Tokyo or Osaka or what have you. But when we think about the market scale, I think this is really sort of typical for any sort of like tech services that predominantly the customers are more or less millennials or upper, and then people dominantly living in Tokyo or the surrounding metropolitan areas, as well as Osaka. And I think that's where we are right now in terms of the market or people who are buying crypto at this point. So I think there's a difference between people who are willing to come up with some cool ideas of crypto. I believe that's coming out from everywhere in Japan, versus the market itself is pretty much focused, concentrated in the larger part of the cities, countries.
San, you had
So
something to say.
just to add to what Nao just mentioned, right? So of the 26 or 27 license that have been handed out over the last 2 years, 3 years, the majority of the license were given out of Tokyo or the Kanto area, and a small portion out of the Osaka area. So it's by region, but it's primarily out of Tokyo. So crypto businesses continue to be centered around Tokyo and maybe Osaka. I don't know of any crypto license company out of Fukuoka, but it's primarily Tokyo. And as Nao mentioned, our customers, it's not about where the customers are. It's about whether the customers are digital native or not, or mobile native or not. Our customers at CoinCheck, 70% are under 30 years old or in their 20s and 30s, right? So it just shows that it's a very young demographic. And you can compare that with the demographic of a brokerage, securities broker customer, which is probably the average is in the mid 50s, right? So it's a very different customer base. So it's the businesses, crypto businesses are in Tokyo, but the customers are all over Japan. It's more about their age and kind of like their adoption towards digital content in general.
Interesting.
One thing to add. I'm sorry. One thing to add on Japan's regulation of being kind of like effective in protecting investors is that earlier this year there was an exchange hack in Japan, which had an office in Singapore as well. And I think the hacked amount was 110 million, 120 million, whatever it was. But the majority of the hack was out of their Singapore wallet. And a small portion, less than 10%, was out of their Tokyo wallet. And this is because the Japanese regulators impose a regulation that customer assets has to be cold walleted, right? So it's very inconvenient. If you're operating an exchange, that it has to, customer assets has to be cold walleted, but it does serve as a kind of like a protection mechanism in case of an extreme case of hacking. So I think there is a flip side always of regulation. It's always, in normal times, it's always a nuisance maybe to a certain extent. But when things happen, it does actually work. I mean, in this case, it did work very well. So I just wanted to add a little bit of credit to the Japanese regulatory framework.
Nice. Seems like besides Singapore regulators needing to hear this, it seems that maybe even the US probably needs to hear this this session as well, if you don't mind me saying. I want to move on since we talk about the good job the regulators have done, and again I'll have Ken kick off this next part of the conversation. It's come to my understanding that like my data shows me that 90% of the central banks in the world are interested in CBDCs, but only 60% of them are probably doing any form of development in the CBDC space, right? And in fact, to echo this as well, at the Singapore FinTech Festival, we debuted also the first retail CBDC challenge, where we got 15 participants to showcase demos and use cases of retail CBDCs, right? And I do know for a fact that there were also a couple of entities in Japan that were also looking at doing like a yen-based stablecoin. I don't think they got very far with it. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I kind of like want to get everybody's perspective. And Ken-san, I'll start with you again. Since you have the view from the top, what's the sentiment on first CBDCs as well as stablecoin? We obviously see the benefits. We understand the value of it. I think people always question what backs these these currencies, so to speak. But yeah, I just wanted to see, hear your thoughts in your own conversations, what maybe is being said, not just within the GFSA, but also among your peers in the industry when it comes to stable coins and CBDCs.
So I think as for the CBDC, the environment has totally changed in last 2 years. So maybe it's because of the development in China, and also because of the COVID-19. So currently, the Japan government is very positive on digitalization. And of course, it used to be that the Japanese people prefers to settle in cash, but in last 1.5 years under the COVID situation, the disease using mobile payment has been dramatically increased. So, and also I think the G7's attitude towards CBDC has changed a lot in the last 2 years. So they were very they are very cautious on that previously, but now I think they are talking about how to introduce CBDC is becoming the topic, I think. So, and also the BOJ, I said earlier, started the experiment. So, and also the government, Japan government, is more positive on the idea of CBDC. So I think, of course, there are lots of challenges to implement it. It cannot be achieved only to change the BOJ laws on BOJ or the currency law or those kind of things, but also think about the changes of the civil code, or it will impact on every aspect of legal issues, let's say. Yeah. So it's going to be a big challenge, but I think we need to eventually move to this direction. So, and of course, there's some competition among the countries. So I'm not sure in what kind of speed Japan would move to adopt CBDC, but it's going to be one of the very big financial and political issues soon. This is my understanding. And as for the stable coins, in Japan, unfortunately, currently there's no good example of the JPY pegged stable coins right now, because currently what kind of regulation would applicable to stable coins is not clear. So it's very similar to cryptos, but it can be also be a kind of bank deposit, or maybe a means of the value of money transfer. So because of this, so
No,
I think
maybe it's a maybe to put it very simplistically, and I see Nao-san smiling again, means that he probably has something else to say about this. So just very quickly, right? And I think we are also kind of like a bit running out of time. So Nao-san, just very quickly, what is the? Do you think, you know, and obviously because of MUFG's investment in you guys, is there really a need for JPY stablecoin at all, in your personal opinion, if it can be very direct?
Come on, I mean, we're talking crypto, and the direction that we're heading towards is the utility side of crypto. Bitcoin, unfortunately, still have some volatility. And all these communities, developers are trying to fix some of the fallouts, and we're seeing cool use cases, and I think stablecoin is one of them. So, we definitely need to have to go to that direction. That's for sure.
Are you guys going to do it?
Oh, that's a great question.
Are you guys good?
We've done USDC, right? And it's been great. It's been really great. We have been evidencing a lot of cool use cases, and many people are really appreciative of us, spearheading the initiative of USDC. So I personally really want to make stable coin happen in Japan as well. Question being, can you give us great advice so that we could, agree with our local regulators to enable us with this, and really looking forward to it.
Interesting. Look, unfortunately we've got kind of like a minute left. I think we all hope that this conversation could have went on for probably another 45 minutes. And maybe, we should do a part 2 of this. We'll find a way to make it work since we're all connected. But as kind of like a closing remark I can get from everybody, and Yo-san, I'm going to start with you. Where do you see, just very, in 2 sentences, where do you see crypto in Japan when we have this conversation again next year, this time?
We're pretty confident that we're going to see a much wider adoption of crypto amongst a broader base of users in Japan. And hopefully we'll have, a handful of iconic corporates dabbling into whether it's treasury management or outright investments into crypto in a year's time.
Nice. Ken-san, I'm going to ask you a very specific question. Crypto ETF, Japan, next 1 year. Do you think it's possible? Or does anybody even care?
Lots of people want to see that, but maybe it may be difficult to have ETF in 1 year. So we are closely watching how the USA the developments in the USA as well.
All right, then follow-on question, 2 years.
Yeah, could be, but we need to have the regulatory changes. So yeah, I hope so. I should say.
And Nao-san, just to bring us, just to wrap it up and everything like that. Are you guys going to be in the next 1 year? Are you guys going to be leading a Japanese stablecoin? And most importantly, is Coinbase in Japan going to do an FTX and maybe sponsor the Giants or something like that, or the Tokyo Dome?
Although things are really great, we're excited to see all the things happening elsewhere. To be confirmed, that's what we're going to be doing in Japan. But one thing for sure, we really want to contribute to the Japanese industry so that everyone would learn more about crypto, not just about Bitcoin. I mean, I've been getting this question of like, which other Bitcoin should I buy? Let's move on to like more sophistication of the crypto amongst people, and really sort of like it's our job to stabilize the market so that everyone would be feeling more comfortable of coming in and out of crypto world. So those are something that we really want to achieve and contribute by doing business in Japan.
Nice. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to be the first to say it's too short, but unfortunately, that's all the time we've been given. I hope to do this again soon, and I sincerely thank you for your time, and I sincerely hope that I can come to Tokyo to see all of you again very, very soon. For everybody watching, thank you very much. This is Gabriel, together with your son, Ken-san, and our son. Thank you very much for watching and for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Bye.